You ever notice how we've built a world where you can be anything, do anything, watch anything, and yet somehow you're sitting there at 11 p.m. paralyzed by Netflix, feeling like you've chosen nothing and lost everything? Here's the uncomfortable bit. What if freedom isn't what we thought? What if all these choices aren't liberating you? They're burying you alive? So let's talk about restaurants. Imagine you're hungry, proper hungry, and someone hands you a menu with 5 dishes. You scan it, pick the pasta, done. Now imagine they hand you a menu with 300 dishes. Suddenly you are sweating. Is the Thai better than the Italian? What if the experimental fusion section has something life-changing? 20 minutes later, you have ordered nothing. You're exhausted and you've forgotten why you came. That's your life now. That's all our lives. We're swimming in an ocean of infinite options, and we're told this is peak civilization. Every streaming service, every career path, every potential version of yourself waiting in the wings. You could be a podcaster, a coder, a digital nomad in Bali. You could watch Norwegian noir or Nigerian comedy or that one documentary about fonts everyone keeps recommending. The world has cracked itself open like an oyster and said, "Here, have everything." And we're drowning. There's this thing psychologists call choice overload, which is a fancy way of saying your brain wasn't designed for this. Back when we were stumbling across savannas, decisions were simple. Eat the berries or don't. Run from the lion or become lunch. Now you're choosing between 17 types of oat milk while simultaneously wondering if you should quit your job and retrain as a therapist because you watched one video about burnout. Every choice comes with a shadow, the ghost of everything you didn't pick. You choose the Netflix film, but what about the other 400? You take the marketing job, but what about the other 73 careers you could have had? And here's where it gets properly twisted. You start to believe that somewhere in that vast sea of options is the perfect choice, the one that will finally make you feel complete. So you keep searching, you keep scrolling. You never commit. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre said we're condemned to be free, which sounded dramatic in 1940s Paris but feels almost quaint now. He meant we are burdened by the weight of our own choices. He had no idea. He didn't live in a world where you could order food from 40 countries at 2 a.m. while comparing 12 different life insurance policies and swiping through infinite potential romantic partners. We are not condemned to be free. We are condemned to be endlessly free, which is somehow worse. And meaning? Meaning requires depth. It requires commitment. It requires saying, this matters, so I'm staying here. But when every door is open, when you can pivot and reinvent yourself every 6 months, nothing feels solid anymore. You're not building a life, you're curating a highlight reel. You're not connecting deeply, you're collecting experiences like they're Pokemon cards. There's a certain loneliness to infinite choice, isn't there? You start to realize that freedom without direction is just chaos wearing a nice suit. Here's what nobody tells you about the paradox. The antidote to overwhelming freedom isn't less freedom, it's intentionality. It's the radical act of closing doors. I know, sounds backwards. We've been conditioned to believe that keeping options open is smart, that commitment is limiting, that saying no is somehow failure. But think about the people you know who actually seem content, who have built something meaningful. They are not the ones perpetually optimizing, endlessly shopping for better versions of themselves. They're the ones who picked something, maybe not the perfect thing, but a good thing, and went deep. There's this concept in economics called satisficing, coined by Harvard Simon, who clearly enjoyed making up words. It means choosing the first option that meets your criteria, rather than exhaustively searching for the optimal one. It's choosing good enough and moving on with your life. And here's the kicker. People who satisfies are generally happier than people who maximize, because maximizers are haunted. They are forever wondering if something better exists just around the corner. You wanna know what freedom actually looks like? It looks like limitations you have chosen for yourself. It's saying, I'm learning the guitar, not the piano, not the violin, just the guitar, and I'm sticking with it even when it's hard. It's watching one show all the way through instead of sampling 20. It's committing to a place, a person, a craft, a path, not because it's perfect, but because depth requires staying put. The writer David Foster Wallace talked about worship, not in a religious sense necessarily, but in the sense that you are always worshiping something. You're always organizing your life around some central concern. The question isn't whether to worship, but what. And when you worship choice itself, when novelty becomes your god, you end up scattered, you end up nowhere. So maybe the real question isn't how do I maximize my options? Maybe it's what do I actually care about? Stripe away the noise, the FOMO, the endless scroll of other people's curated lives. What would you do if you only had 5 options? What matters enough to commit to? Here's a practical bit. Start saying no. Not in a hostile way, but in a protective way. No to the party you don't want to attend. No to the career path that doesn't excite you, even if it sounds impressive. No to the relationship that's just fine but not quite right. Every no clears space for a deeper yes. Set constraints. Sounds counterintuitive, but constraints breed creativity and meaning. Writers who can write about anything often write about nothing. Artists with infinite materials produce scattered work. You need boundaries, you need a frame. And maybe, just maybe, accept that you are going to miss out on things. That's not tragedy, that's life. You can't read every book, visit every country, master every skill. The moment you accept that, the moment you stop trying to live every possible life simultaneously, something shifts. You start living your life. So here we are, at the end of it all, standing in the wreckage of infinite possibility. The paradox isn't going away. The options will keep multiplying. The world will keep offering you everything. But you get to choose what to do with that. You get to build fences around what matters. You get to say this, not that. And in those limitations, in those commitments, you might just find the very thing all those choices promised but never delivered. Meaning. Real, deep, aching meaning. The kind you can't swipe past. So go on then, pick something, anything, and for once, stay.